Hello, my name's John Chater, one of the trainers and editors at Wallards. I'm going to introduce the second quarterly review of the NHS in 2014, which was published in April. The purpose of this talk through is to provide you with an overview and introduction to the Q2 review, outlining its major themes and opening the way for you to explore the review in greater detail later. On this slide you can see the magnificent 7 of service planning and delivery, all of which we're going to consider. Please note that throughout the presentation you'll see links both to external content and also to supporting information and courses on the Wallards website. Do please follow these in your own time. In this, the second quarter of the year, we enter the do phase of NHS planning. New services and pathways are coming online. Also expect to see new providers and revised contracts. Let's remind ourselves that already a year has passed since the reformed NHS took legal effect in April 2013. In the interceding year, the NHS has had to contend with a great deal, not just the bedding in of a new and in some respects more complicated system, but also the aftermath of various patient care scandals, serious questions raised over self-regulation, and an ever-tightening financial allocation that is barely keeping ahead of inflation. This has created an unstable environment for planning and delivery, only now beginning to clarify into something more coherent and predictable. As you can see, doing requires looking at services anew, redesigning where necessary, ensuring demand is met and that performance is monitored. This word cloud shows some of the key themes emerging this quarter. Innovation scores highly, and also the introduction of the Better Care Fund, which will affect integrated care delivery. As outgoing NHS Chief Executive David Nicholson is finding out, one of the advantages of retirement is that you can speak your mind a little more fulsomely. Some of his departing observations are highlighted here. Likewise, former Minister Lord Warner has proposed a flat rate membership fee to shore up the diminishing NHS budget, described by critics without too much humour as comparable to the poll tax, but in fact slightly less popular. The Innovation Bill proposes a more liberal approach to medical innovation, introducing a modified risk of litigation for example, medical negligence. Whilst not in any way proposing an unregulated system, it does advocate the removal of unnecessarily defensive impediments. Details on the delivery of the UK Rare Diseases Strategy have been published. It includes information on personal care plans integration, support for specialist centres and the promotion of the UK as a world leader in R&D in the field. NHS England's investigation into surgical never events is of interest to providers, especially those who are able, through closer workings and relevant business case planning, to help reduce incidents. 5 ambitions are outlined in a call to action, shown here, intended to improve services in primary care. In Scotland, significant changes are afoot intended to improve services by making health and social care providers work more collaboratively. Community health partnerships are being phased out and integrated care networks introduced. In Northern Ireland, a review of paediatric services is underway, which will affect the delivery of services for the next 10 years. CCG engagement was the subject of a particularly engaging presentation by Julian Given at a recent Wallards Forum on Market Access. He made the often missed point that as well as clinical data, the NHS's own data and set targets around outcomes and performance are also crucial to engagement. Against a single argument approach to CCGs, the recommendation is to carefully build a business case from a variety of sources, presenting a more rounded and therefore credible argument in support of a product. In this way, benefits are easier to explain and quantify. CTE is a currently fairly limited programme intended to encourage movement and interest in treatments not routinely funded. It is accurately described as a patient-centric market access scheme. On this and the next screen are 8 tools designed to help CCGs better understand the meaning of a good outcome. Outlined here, they make a useful addition to the armoury of any representative attempting to understand CCG priorities. Here we can see how ubiquitous the private sector is becoming in the revised NHS. This is only set to continue. In Wales, there have been calls for GPs to take control of local commissioning budgets, seen by some as a necessary step in designing joined-up services. The proposal is yet to be agreed by the Assembly, but is being seriously considered as a possible antidote to some of the problems of the currently beleaguered Welsh NHS. AHSM plans on a page are a useful way of understanding how these increasingly influential groups work. They're outward-facing organisations willing to work with industry, so are of great interest. More AHSM clinical networks are being launched this quarter, with a number of diabetes networks launched earlier in the year. Spend some time identifying and getting to know the clinical leads in the HSNs that support therapy areas aligned with your product. The somewhat troublesome ride enjoyed by CSUs has led to the introduction of the CSU Lead Provider Framework, which will bring about a reduction in overall CSU numbers. Large providers are proving to dominate clinical senates, which are finally beginning to take shape. Find out who is on the senates and what they're doing to support your products. Supply to Health contains a useful directory setting out commissioner provider contracts. Worth a quick look, especially as it will be shutting down soon. The idea behind hospital chains, one provider running several sites or specific service areas, is proving popular as it is seen as a means to raise quality and efficiency. For suppliers of products and services, chains are a way of establishing market interconnectivity, possibly opening doors in new areas and locations. Well worth investigating. In Scotland, there is no push towards the private sector comparable with that taking place in England. The attitude to the private sector in Scotland is only to be used in exceptional circumstances. In other words, where there is no available NHS provision. It may be that such an ideological objection to the private sector may increase pressure on the existing NHS as demand inevitably rises. The Better Care Fund is a reallocation of money from the NHS to local authorities in the form of a fund intended to increase integration between sectors. You need to not just be aware of the creation of the fund, but how specifically it is being implemented in your area. From this screen you can access resources on the Better Care Fund available on Wellards. Tariff prices are rather consistent, namely mostly unchanged, but there are some developments that are of interest, and the intention is that local variation in prices will be developed further. It's a tough environment for NHS trusts, struggling to deliver efficiencies and maintain services. It's not as bad as it could be, or indeed as it is likely to get if demand continues to grow as it is growing. This screen briefly describes how NHS services are priced by way of reference cost setting. There will be a 1% above inflation increase for health boards this year in Scotland, though they will also be expected to ensure 3% efficiency gains to be reinvested in primary care. The picture is similar across the UK, of course. Money is tight and expectations remain high. 6 measures that cover a combination of national and local priorities are captured in the quality premium paid to CCGs. These payments reflect the quality of the health services commissioned by CCGs, geared towards better outcomes and higher patient satisfaction. The key elements of the quality premium are set out on this screen, and also what they are worth. As with many an incentive scheme, it's not all roses. Penalties lie in wait for CCGs that do not pass threshold. Medicines optimisation is a sequin-targeted area, where a percentage of a provider's contract is geared to a measurable improvement in the quality of a service. Learn about these on this page. Prescrip is a prescribing program utilised by an increasing number of health economies. It provides bulletins, toolkits and implementation plans, well worth acquiring to better understand how prescribing in your area is being affected. Efficiency targets are likely to be subject to local variation based upon trust's individual potential for achieving savings. A close understanding of a trust's financial position will be necessary to see if they are in line for a tariff variation. Interestingly, perhaps surprisingly, there does not seem to be a correlation between reduced resources and worse outcomes. The document here explores some of the approaches for successfully understanding how variations in outcomes can be related to resource deployment. In Scotland, Health Efficiency Access and Treatment, or HEAT, is similar to QUIP in England. Its latest targets and priorities are shown here. A price war is potentially in the offing, as Monitor and NHS England has advised foundation trusts against accepting blanket price increases from companies, and also recommended against signing confidentiality agreements which would work against transparency in pricing. The National Institute for Health Research aims to maintain a health research system in which the NHS supports leading-edge research. An introduction to the work of the NIHR can be accessed from this page. NICE has published its 4th update to the Innovation Scorecard, which provides intelligence around patient access to 76 new NICE-appraised medicines. An agreement developed by the ABPI and NHS England on partnership agreements between ABPI members and specialised services CCGs has been agreed. The agreement commits to improved collaborative working focused on high-quality treatments. On this screen there is a roundup of useful announcements and documents related to pharma this quarter. And on this screen there's an update of recent developments on the Wellard's website, extra courses and learning channels, a new diabetes resource, and the option of requesting a clinical area specific Q review. Many thanks for listening to this podcast on our second quarter review of the NHS in 2014. Do please contact us at Wellard's if you require any further information about the review or wish to discuss further training and information options.